Hi students, welcome to class. I'm Mr. Gideon. Yes. Today I will be teaching you quadratic equation. Without further ado, let's dive into class. So in this study we will look at quadratic equation and we will focus on factorization method. So we'll focus on factorization method. I am your teacher today, Mr. Gideon Eze. Let's look at this. Learning objectives. These are things you're expected to learn after the class. Number one, you should be able to define a quadratic equation. Number two, you should be able to identify the parts of a quadratic equation. Quadratic equation does have parts, actually. It does have parts. So at the end of the class, you are expected to be able to identify the parts, and ultimately, number three, you should be able to solve a simple quadratic equation by factorization method. These are the learning objectives. What is a quadratic equation? A quadratic equation is an equation in which the highest power of the variable is 2. The variable here means the unknown. The unknown. This unknown might be x, it might be your y, it might be any alphabet. Okay? So, a quadratic equation whose highest power of the unknown or the highest power of the variable is 2, such an equation is a quadratic equation. Equation like this, x plus 1 equal to 8. Will you call it a quadratic equation? No, it is not a quadratic equation. Why? Simple. The highest power of the unknown here is 1 and not 2. In this, I want you to note my A, my B, and my C. These are the 3 parts of a quadratic equation. The first part is the A, and I further explained here that your A is not equal to 0. So on no account should your A be 0. If your A becomes 0, then what it means is that x squared here is cancelled, and once it's cancelled, it won't be a quadratic equation again. It can still be a linear equation, but it won't be quadratic again. So for it to remain a quadratic equation, your A must not be equal to 0. A shouldn't be equal to 0. Alright? Okay, next thing again I want you to note is that your A, B, C are all constants. In mathematics, constants are numbers that have no variables attached to them. They are like 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. and many others. Now, I also want to show you examples of quadratic equation in addition to the ones I've done so far. The ones I am highlighting now are quadratic equation, but the one under is not a quadratic equation. Take a look at it very well again. The one under is not a quadratic equation, but this one up here is a quadratic equation method of solving a quadratic equation. Look at this. Now, basically, there are 4 methods that can be used to solve a quadratic equation. The first one is the factorization method. The second one is the completing the square method. And in the third one, we have the quadratic formula. In some regions of the world, most students prefer to call this the almighty formula. Okay, then the last method is the graphical method. In factorization method, we simply solve by factorizing or factoring the quadratic expression or equation. And what does this mean? This means that we use the factors. What do you mean by factors? In mathematics, factors of a number are those numbers that can divide a particular number without any remainder. Look at an example here. 12 is an even number. The even number 12 has many factors. What do I mean by factors? Numbers that can divide it without any remainder. So the factors of 12 are, you have your 1, you have your 2, also have 3, because 3 can divide 12 to give 4. When do we have 4? 4 can divide 12 to give 3. We have 6, and we equally have 12, because 12 can also divide itself to give us 1. I hope this is clear. That's what we mean by factor. That's what I mean by factor. So, in factorization method, what we do basically is to factor the quadratic equation or expression, depending. By the way, what's the difference between a quadratic equation and a quadratic expression? Let me explain briefly without any wasting of time. Oh, look at this. Look at this. A situation where you have x squared plus 3x plus 1 equal to 0. This is called a quadratic equation. But when you have x raised to power 2 plus 3x plus 1, this is regarded as your quadratic expression. This is a quadratic expression, whereas the one on top is a quadratic equation. I hope this is very, very clear. Okay, let's take some examples. So look at this. Solving by factorization. You have for example 1. Solve x squared plus 5x plus 6 equal to 0. How do you do this? Now look at the explanations that accompany this. We need two numbers, and these two numbers, what do we do with them? First of all, their products must give us 6, our constant, our C here. Look at what I mean. We are looking for two numbers whose product will give us our C. Remember, I told you initially that the quadratic equation has 3 parts. It has your A part, it has your B part, and it has your C part. And so now we are looking for two numbers whose product is 6 and the sum is 5. In other words, we are looking for numbers that will multiply themselves to give us our C, and then when we add them together, they will give us our B. And so the two numbers to use in this equation are 2 and 3, because 2 multiplied by 3 is 6. Whereas 2 plus 3 is 5, which is our B. Can you see that the both brackets are multiplying themselves? Yes, that's how it's supposed to be. Now, when the product of two things in mathematics is equal to 0, what it means is that one of them must definitely be 0. You have to equate the both of them. Equate the both of them to 0, because what we are actually factorizing is a quadratic equation. You have to equate the first one to 0 and equate the second one to 0. Then look at this. When you equate them to 0, you find out that you're having linear equations, simple equations, and that will give you your final answer, where we have that x is going to be equal to -2 or -3. I repeat, x is equal to -2, -3. This is student exercise. You're going to try this yourself to solve x squared plus 7x plus 12 equal to 0. You're going to try this at home at your own leisure time alone. You have 4 questions here. You have to keep practicing to always retain what you've been taught and be able to excel in your examination.